We take one final peek at the Miami Dolphins ahead of the 2024 NFL trade deadline, which is today at 4 o'clock, as well as reflect on some of the big boy football the Dolphins decided to play against the Bills in Week 9. That here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami, and the NFL Draft lead for the 33rd team. Shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. We don't just say it, we live it. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? It's game time. It's also time to you-know-what or get off the pot as it pertains to the Miami Dolphins with buying or selling or a combination of the both or a combination of neither with the NFL trade deadline coming in a few hours. I'm sitting down. It's about 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday, November 5th. And deadline is 4 o'clock this afternoon. We've seen some moves happen already. The Dallas Cowboys with a mind-bending trade of a fourth-round pick for Jonathan Mingo, who's been an underwhelming player since coming into the league with the Panthers. The Cincinnati Bengals made their third in-season player acquisition in over 50 years. Trading for Khalil Herbert from the Chicago Bears. And you had Zadarius Smith this morning going from Cleveland to the Detroit Lions. So some impact with future Dolphins opponent in Week 17 there, the Cleveland Browns. But Miami in particular, we're going to look at should any trades happen, ingoing or outgoing as it pertains to Miami. But I wanted to kind of put a bow on what we saw, especially offensively. And here's how you know I was juiced about what we saw offensively in Week 9 against Buffalo. Over on the Substack, Touchdown Miami, that I have, which it's like an online newsletter, but you could do like audio, video, written, whatever. And if you sign up, you're on the mailing list. Every time there's something new, it gets delivered to you. I did the full offensive game tape, 68 minutes. Look at the L22 and the player design. And I did my grades of all of the Dolphins players who took snaps in this game. I have my grades up right here on my right-hand side. There were 3 offensive players who scored below expectation. One of them, D. Eskridge, played 2 snaps. One of them, Tanner Connor, played 8 snaps. And one of those snaps was an offensive pass interference call that technically didn't, it was not a negated play, but it would have negated a play had they chosen to accept the penalty. And Durham Smythe, who played about 24 snaps and continued what has been kind of a frustrating stretch for him as an inline tight end in this offense. Every other player, even Robert Jones with some of the losses that he scored, even Raheem Mostert with the fumble, the things that he did in the first half, the way that the grading process works is every play you get plus or minus up to 2 points, depending on how above or below expectation your execution is within what the assignment is of the play and your leverage in the play and how you read your keys and so on and so forth. Every other player, even the usual question marks. And like Robert Jones was the 4th worst grade that I had, but it was just by incrementally above average across 63 snaps. That was great in this game. Liam Eichenberg, same thing. And then you had players at the top of the charts who scored far and away their best individual game performances of the year. And that included Tua Tagovailoa. That included Teron Armstead. That included Aaron Brewer. Jalen Waddle had his 2nd best performance despite the quiet day in the air. He obviously had a couple big catches down the stretch, the 3rd down conversion, the touchdown. Austin Jackson, Alec Ingold, Liam Eichenberg all posted their 2nd best performances in a single game this season. Tyreek Hill posted the 3rd best single game performance of his season, behind only Jacksonville last week against Arizona. Universally across the board, you guys played lights out offensively. And unfortunately, you had to settle for a field goal in the low red zone. You had a fumble coming out of halftime that you were going to go up probably 2 scores if Raheem Mostert doesn't fumble. And that's part of the conversation that we'll have when we talk about like should any trades incoming or outgoing happen. But I don't know, man. Like, where was this offense all season? And it wasn't just, wow, the guys played hard. The design was coherent. The play calling was disciplined. The execution on the road was as good as it has ever been in the Mike McDaniel era. And it's like, why did it take to get to 2-5 for this to be the case? And I think when we collect all the pieces at the end of the season, however it ends, and you're assessing what went right and what went wrong, it's important for this Dolphins team, specifically offensively, when that's where Mike McDaniel's bread is buttered, play like this the rest of the year. Because if you do, it makes the conversations that you have a lot easier. It's not just that you scored 27 points and almost beat Buffalo, and it's the 6th most points the Bills have allowed in a single game in their last 50 games played. All that's true, but it was the way that you won the line of scrimmage. It was the cleanliness of your operation. I think you had one moment late in the game where you had to call a timeout because guys couldn't get lined up correctly on the final drive. And if you're going to need it, like you didn't burn your other timeouts throughout the game, fine. And if you'd have got the stop you were supposed to get on 3rd down on the Bills' final possession, if Jordan Poyer doesn't put his helmet into the face mask of Keon Coleman, you're probably getting the ball near the 40-yard line with 2 timeouts. So, like, situationally, you didn't get burned in this game. It's the first time Mike McDaniel called a game, and I think some of it was probably the game script. And Joe Marino made that point to me. We do Locked On NFL Scouting together. He's the host of Locked On Bills. He's like, think about all the Dolphins-Bills games. There was like the way the game script unfolded. If Keon Coleman doesn't bat the ball up in the air and Jalen Ramsey doesn't intercept it, you go down more points, or if the urgency of trading blows accelerates, does Mike stay patient? And you were able to kind of control the flow of the game. Whereas when games snowball for Mike McDaniel is usually when you see them start worrying about possessions too early in the game and things start to go sideways. The way that you called this game, the way that this game was executed from a play caller's perspective, from a scheme perspective, from a quarterback perspective, do this every week. And so if you do this every week and you play to this potential the rest of the year, the conversation around this team, I think the dynamics would change. And this is why it is important to let the entirety of the season unfold. But like some peaks of maturation from Mike McDaniel, the play caller, with the flow of the game? Was it because of the game script, or was it because you've actually learned some things about this going into every time you try and play this team and you try and score 40 points and go blow for blow for them and you make a mistake and then it compounds and then you can make another mistake trying to make up for your mistake? We won't see the Bills again this season, thank goodness. But the way that 31 rushes, you won the point of attack. Austin Jackson was awesome in the run game, moving guys around. Teron Armstead looking as good as he ever has in the Miami Dolphins uniform. Aaron Brewer getting up onto the second level. The guards, they left them on islands more often, and you had more 5-man protections and got guys out in their routes, and that helps you space the field more effectively. Like all of that stuff, do it the rest of the year. Because as this evaluation period continues, whether you make a run or you don't make a run, and like I'm mentally not expecting a run because expectations minus reality equals disappointment, right? I'm not expecting anything. But if you can at least piece together consistency with performances like this, it changes the conversation about what do we need to do differently moving forward, which can tie into trade deadline. Conveniently enough, that's next here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins. Make sure that you stick with us. If you're trying to get out to SoFi for Monday Night Football, the Dolphins play the Rams. As a West Coast Dolphins fan, they don't get out there all that often, so this is a great opportunity for you to catch game. Get your tickets through Game Time. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets for all of the local concerts, comedy, theater, sports venues, and more. You could toggle on all-in pricing so that there's no guesswork. You see the total cost, no surprise fees when you put the tickets into your cart. You can see the panoramic view from your seats before you hit purchase, so you know exactly what kind of sight lines you're signing yourself up for. And best of all, you can, with just a few taps of your phone, get the tickets delivered directly to your phone. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDONNFL, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. If you're looking for a little action in Week 10 this upcoming weekend, you can get ready to tackle all the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to live bet in the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page as where you place your bets as things currently stand. The Dolphins, 2.5-point dogs on Monday Night Football against the Rams. Rams, a young defense, but they have done a really good job of developing talent within that program. So you're seeing a lot of young players making plays for them, including first-round draft choice Jared Verse. But if you think the Dolphins can get a win under their belt and kind of get over the hump, maybe you like the money line. They're plus 114 on the money line. So you can check all that out over at FanDuel. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So we alluded to in the post-game show on Sunday night a couple of options for being incentivized to get young players on the field. And the tone of Mike McDaniel's press conference on Monday was that of conviction that this team is a lot better than their record indicates that they are. I would say, I think it is a fair statement to say that this team is more talented than 2-6, but you are what your record says you are. And this has been a team that did not have answers for not having a starting quarterback, is now looking particularly banged up on defense. I don't trust that they have a lot of the right answers unless they get healthy in a hurry. And Zach Sieler, it sounds like Mike McDaniel's optimistic that he is going to play in Week 10 against the Rams on Monday Night Football. Could we see Jevon Holland? Could we see Kader Kohu, Bradley Chubb? Like there's some optimism. There's optimism that he will play this season. But you're getting down to it now. It's November 5th, so that's the kind of stuff for the Dolphins that it has to happen now. But you have to make these decisions on buying and selling before that. I think people hear the word buy, and the first place that their mind goes is splash. Right. And mortgaging the future of the organization. If the Dolphins are going to buy anybody, this is what I would do if I was going to buy as the Dolphins at the trade deadline. I would try to find a pass rusher with multiple years left on their contract and not a player with big money left on their contract. Is there any rookie contract players available from a pass rush perspective that are particularly attractive options to bring in for a future late and not a 2025? Like, I want all the 2025 draft picks I can get, but a 2026 or 2027 future day 3 draft choice to bring a young player that maybe didn't get off on the right foot with the current scheme and coaching staff, or is with a team now that didn't pick that player when they first got picked to come in, and then the coach got fired and the scheme changed and all that kind of stuff. Those would be the kinds of players that I would be searching for because, frankly, you don't have enough right now on the edge. I haven't finished the defensive game tape grading, but I can tell you, watching Emmanuel Ogbah and Tyus Bowser and Chop Robinson and Muhammad Kamara and Quentin Bell, these guys trying to keep their head above water and give you an organic 4-man pass rush, it ain't happening. And you can extend that to the interior defensive line as well. I think Deshaun Hand has been a pleasant surprise. And kudos. I know somebody tunes into this show that seems to know Deshaun quite well and was very effusive in their encouragement and enthusiasm of Deshaun in the preseason when I was talking about him as a fringe roster player. I'll tip my cap, right? Like, and I want everybody to succeed, but he's outperformed my expectations. He's been like a fun, rotational guy for the better part of the last month. But without Zach Sieler and with Calais Campbell on a pitch count, when 92 and 93 are off the field, you get a ton of chunk runs. You're giving up a ton of explosives. And it's not a coincidence that it's when the guys that are the deeper guys in the depth chart are all on the field at the same time, you're getting gashed. So defensive tackle, we knew they threw a lot of stuff at the wall to try to get it to stick. Hadn't really sticked, if we're being honest. And what that leaves you with is that would be a spot, along with the edge rush, that if you could find the right kind of player for the right kind of like future year day 3 draft choice, I could sneeze on draft day and come up with a 4th round pick if I wanted to. Now, they paid a premium price to go get Jalen Wright, and that's a part of the conversation about outgoing talent potentially. I would not bat an eye at bringing a player in like that, provided it's a cost-controlled player from a financial perspective that plays particularly along the defensive front. What's become apparent is that there's no trades or no cuts coming from talent. I know they released Matt Overton off the practice squad. They've brought in a new long snapper to the practice squad as Blake Ferguson continues to be on the non-football injury list. I just don't know when we're going to see Blake Ferguson again, but that's a whole other conversation. But that's what I would be looking to buy. I'm not looking to send a 1st round pick plus for Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. Like that's a super, super duper cost. I thought like a 6 for Baron Browning, which the Cardinals did. Like I'd have been sympathetic to that kind of move to say, okay, it's like an attractive and it's not a big cost and you're not mortgaging anything to do that. I know people are leery about Chris Greer and his long-term footing with the organization and not wanting to have future asset decisions and all that. But I do think there's opportunities while he's here. He's going to make best decisions, long-term, short-term for the organization. And I think I thought a move like that, it would have made sense. And I'd be like, okay, like, I don't think you're selling yourself short if you do something like that. What about the other side of the coin? Outgoing. Realistically, what do we think could happen? We're going to touch on that here as we bring this episode of Locked On Dolphins to a close. Make sure that you stick with us. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is sponsored by BetterHelp. This month is all about gratitude, along with the person that you may think of most when you hear the word gratitude in your life. There's other people that don't get thanked quite enough, and that's yourself. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we're trying our best to make the sense of everything in this crazy world, and that isn't easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with licensed therapists, and you could switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Potential outgoing talent for the Dolphins at the deadline. I would be surprised if anything goes out, just because I don't think you have a great intersection of available talent versus the needs across the league. Now, are there some exceptions here? Sure. What are you getting? When are you getting River Craycraft back? Are you getting him back this week? I know he practiced last week. He was not activated off of his available window, 21-day window. Odell Beckham made some nice catches for you. Made a nice catch in traffic on a slant that was the exact kind of route that they targeted Tyreek Hill for on the first 3rd down of the game. And Tyreek didn't catch it. I think that is a difference with Odell and what he can afford your wide receiver room. Plucking the ball in traffic, strong hands away from his friend. But if you're looking at really leaning into the run game as another mouth to feed that's probably not happy with the number of passes that he's getting based on the bill of goods that he was sold when he decided to sign here, would somebody give you something for Odell in a contract year to clear things up for River Craycraft, who Tua Tagovailoa has excellent chemistry with in the midst of Malik Washington as a 6th-round draft choice in this year's class, giving you some nice snaps in the run game? He's a couple of really nice blocks in the run game. And they're starting to move him around, so you feel like he's really starting to get it, and it's going to click into place for him. If somebody wants to offer you a day 3 draft selection for Odell Beckham, I'd probably take it. I don't think anybody's going to offer you anything for any of the players we're disenfranchised on the defensive side of the ball, like David Long in a contract year, especially given the fact that it feels like he's been playing through a hamstring issue. I certainly don't think your veteran players in the secondary or at least it's safety. I know we're all very disenfranchised with Jordan Poyer right now. I don't think that's a player that gives you anything of value. I don't think anybody trades for that. Kendall Fuller. I would not be mad about Cam Smith getting playing time. I think the other side of that coin is would a team want to roll the dice on Cam Smith if you've seen what you need to see and would cash out? I mean, talk about an L that you would take that would be a detriment to your resume as the general manager of the football team. I mean, that was your first pick for the 2023 draft class. It's been very up and down. There's been some nice reps, but there's been a lot of not nice reps for Cam in 2 games. And you wish he would have played last year, but he didn't play last year. I know everybody wants to point to Jevon Holland and say, we trade Jevon Holland. We don't think they're going to pay him. It's about $19 million franchise tag. That's not going to happen for him. Neither is anybody giving you a pick that's going to be anywhere near worthwhile in my mind for Jevon. He's got the broken hand. He's dealing with a knee injury right now. It would not be a sell high opportunity if you felt like you were not going to retain Jevon Holland. And I think that complicates the matters a little bit. Plus, you're in a perfect world. I'd be playing Jevon and Marcus May. And if Javon's not in the picture, I'd be playing Marcus May and Elijah Campbell before I play Jordan Poyer. So Raheem Mostert's the other name that I would mention if a team wants a veteran back. I know Jeff Wilson's the guy who can't get active. But Raheem's hurt you the last 3 games. And I know we said this on the Sunday afternoon show as well. Raheem's been a great locker room leader for this football team the last couple of years. He's been very successful here. Obviously had a record-setting season last year. But Devon Achane getting more run. Jalen Wright obviously can go and would like to get him reps. So like there's a couple of spots where you have blockades where maybe you'd like to free up some more room in a rotation, whether that's at corner or running back or whatever else. But I don't think you're going to have a great appeal for Raheem Mostert with another year left on his contract as a 30-year-old running back that's had some durability questions that now is putting the ball on the ground, right? Like you don't have a lot of sell high opportunities here. So I'd be surprised if anything went out. I would not be surprised if a marginal piece came in at a very cheap cost. But we shall see. Trade deadline, as I'm wrapping this up, is about 5 hours away. You can keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. Appreciate you guys. Check out the show. Make it a great rest of your day. I'll be back to talk to you all again soon. Go Fins.